George, they started fighting, and we didn't jump in. We let it go one-on-one, but then the guy happened, for some reason, got on top of George. So I says, well, fuck this. I'm not going to let this happen. So I grabbed the guy's ankles, and I slid him off. And as I was sliding him off, I was kicking him in the balls. And I was stomping on him like that. So that kind of took the wind out of him a little bit. And George got back on him. So then the COs came. They heard the ruckus.
Welcome back to the Goodfellow Podcast. Today we're back again with Mr. Joe Barone, a former Bonanno associate and former FBI informant. Welcome back to the show, Joe. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks.
Today Joe's back again to share with us his personal experience with the prison system and what it's like in prison for a wise guy. So why don't you start wherever you want, Joe. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, of course, I was locked up a few times, obviously. I never stayed overnight until I got into older. But the first time I went to prison, I didn't go to those gladiator schools, which is like Rikers Island and all of that. So I in one way, I lucked out there, to believe it or not. But the first time I went away, I went to Otisville, New York, FCI, Otisville, whatever it was up there. I remember when I was in there, the COs, you got to get you strip searched, all that nonsense. And the guy says to me, "Can you fight?" I went like that. And he says, "You better learn how to fight while you're in here. You're in prison now. It's not like the street. You can't run away. You can't go home and then never see the guy again. Basically you're in close quarters. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of not that I'm prejudiced, whatever the case may be, but there's more blacks than whites. Obviously, there's more Spanish than whites, and especially Italians.
And from what I understand, it's very segregated in prison, right?
Very segregated.
Where the whites stick with the whites and the Hispanics stick with the Hispanic, that sort of thing, right?
There's some whites that we know. There's some guys that are like the redneck looking guys, and then you got the skinheads, you got the other kind of white guys that, motorcycle guys or whatever you want to call them. And, of course, you got the wise guys, the white guys like that. And we more or less try to gravitate to each other because there's, listen, there's no really one-on-one fight there in prison. So I don't know what everybody might think, but you always get jumped in there for the most part. It's very rare that you could fight one-on-one with somebody. And then, of course, you got to worry about them having a weapon. So shank or whatever you want to call it. They have their own little things. They put a lock in a sock. I mean, you could do anything in there, depending on where you are. But prison is not the nicest life. Let's face it. Nobody wants to go to prison. But depending on how much time you got to do, you just got to set your mind to it, know that you got to do it, and that's the way it was when I first went in. I figured I was going to do a few years, and so I was prepared for it.
So before your first real bid at prison, what was the longest you did at a county jail or anything like that?
I didn't even do overnight. It wasn't even that bad.
Okay.
I always got bailed out quick, so it wasn't like the end of the world. I got locked up maybe 3 or 4 times before that, so it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean?
And how long was your first bid? Your first real bid?
They gave me 4 years. I did 3 years, 6 months to the door. I didn't take the halfway house because the halfway house is like you can always get in more trouble at the halfway house. There's a lot of drugs there, a lot of messed up people, and so I figured, let me just do it to the door, and this way I know what I got to do. So I did 3 years, 6 months exactly to the door.
What was your first 24 hours in jail like? What was some of the things that were going through your head?
You're locked up in with somebody you don't even know. You don't really sleep. It's just it's really like listen, it's a whole different way of life from what you live in. I mean, I don't even care if you're tough or whatever. Most of the time, they put you in the hole when you first go into the federal system. They don't even give you a room, where you're going to be with another cellie or something like that. But sometimes you go to the box right away when you first go in, and so that's a kind of a wake up call when you're locked up like that for 2-3 days a week, whatever it may be, a month, who knows. But you know, when you, and especially like since I did 15 months in the box, the box seems to, the walls close in on you. You got a lot of stuff to think about.
What
It's
is
crazy.
what is it like being in solitary confinement? For those who don't know, that's what he's talking about when he says the box.
Yeah, solitary confinement, the shoe, the hole, it's all different names, but the shoe is, some people do, I guess, pretty good in there. But even if you can handle the box, it still mentally does things to you. You can't help it. They've done a lot of surveys on the box, and so that's where I actually developed my PTSD. I didn't know I was messed up. When I had come home from the box, I locked myself in a room, kept all the shades and everything drawn. It wasn't because I was thinking somebody's coming after me right away. I was in the box, and I didn't realize how bad it messed me up. You know,
And for those listening, you were in for how long?
I was, the last bid I did was 19 months. The second bid was when I got my second
In
pinch.
solitary confinement for 19 months?
15 months.
15 months.
Yeah, because I was out in the common area, you know, the general population, GP, and then when the FBI outed me because I didn't want to work with them anymore, they told the Bureau of Prisons to put me in the box, that my life was in danger, and that was the excuse they used. I have also some newspaper clippings and stuff like that. I'll try to bring on the next time I come. Also, the Bureau of Prisons do whatever they want to do. You know, don't think that they can't treat you a certain way, or like you say here, I'll give you an example. If you want to starve yourself, like go on a food strike for yourself or whatever, and you don't want to eat anymore because you want to kill yourself just for argument's sake, they'll force feed you. They'll tie you down, shove a hose in your mouth, and they'll force feed you not to die. If you don't want to come out of your cell or whatever the case may be, because like when you're in the box, every 30 days you move to a different cell. I don't know why, but whatever it is. And I'm sure they got their own rules. And they don't really follow their rules. Matter of fact, that's how I actually got out of the hole from Judge Buckwall. Got me out because they didn't even follow their own rules. They tortured me in there. I wound up getting a staph infection, which was MRSA staph. They had to cut big masses out of me, big like little tumor things they had in me. Yeah, so I got 3 scars on me, behind my leg and my groin, and and one on my butt. Believe it or not. Yeah, well, I was on 3 antibiotics because almost died. So that's what they really want to do. They want to torture you, and it's pure torture. I mean, you're locked up 23 hours a day. On the weekends, you're locked up 24. You don't get out.
What's the 1 hour? What do they let you out to do for the 1
They
hour?
let you out into another fenced-in kind of it's not a yard. It's just another cage, but it's outside. And so in summertime, when it's really nice out, you really want to stay outside, they come and get you less than 45. You're supposed to be out for like 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it is. They take you in before that. They don't let you stay out there because you're enjoying yourself. But when it's winter or it's raining, they forget about you all of a sudden. Yeah, because
I'm
a lot of
sure.
people don't go out in the rain, and a lot of people didn't go out when it was really cold out. And they left me out. I think I was with this other guy, Ralph Nicoletti. He was in the cell with me for a little bit. A young kid, good kid. Stand-up kid, and he was out there, and me and him, we were freezing out there. They left us out there for like 2 hours or better.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they did give us a hat and and a coat, but
That's horrible.
yeah, they do that on purpose. They're not nice to you. Listen, these COs over there, some of them, you get one decent one out of 100 maybe, but most of the time they like the sadistic ways. You don't get Q-tips to clean your ears. You don't get certain food and privileges like you do when you're out, in general population. You get the phone only once a month for 15 minutes. Your visits are more restricted. Okay, so yeah, they really screw with you there. They really try to hurt you and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I mean, there's some wild guys. I mean, I've seen a lot of MS-13 guys in there, Mexican Mafia guys I met there. Some of the guys were nice. The Mexican Mafia guy was really cool. And you do a little, sometimes at night out of boredom, you do what they call fishing. So you have a long cord, they make it. Some guy made it for me, and you put these batteries in there or whatever, and like a toothpaste thing. It's like really crazy how they do it. And then you put a staple from the letter that they give you, because they read your mail when it comes in and when it leaves, and then they staple it closed, and you take that staple and you use it as a hook. So sometimes if it's a really good fishing thing, what they do is you go underneath the door. It's got about this much room underneath it, and you shoot it to the other guy in the cell next to you or down the other way, and believe it or not, you can get a magazine or a candy
Oh, wow.
bar or stuff like that. Yeah, so we used to pass things along like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. So I'd hook onto his, and he'd hook onto mine. Then he'd pull his in there, wrap up the magazine, and then I'd pull it. I get to see a magazine, and I do the same back to him. This way we'd share magazines because the COs wouldn't pass the magazines. Not all. Some of them did. Not all of them though.
Right.
And they were like, "Oh, I ain't passing nothing, man. It's a friggin' magazine, bro. You know what I mean?" But they just want to break your balls, and that's it.
Was there other mafia members in prison? Now let's talk about your first stint here. When you first get in, did you sort of gravitate towards them, or off the bat, or what? How
Yeah. Oh yeah, right away because they see you're Italian, and excuse me. They see you're Italian, and right away you're gonna try to go with them. And if you have a decent name, which I did back on my first bid when I was in Otisville, my name was good. Okay, some people knew my father and stuff like that. I used to, of course they would. I think it's like weird how you get around. You meet another guy that's either in a cell with you, he's Italian too, and this and that, and then before you know it, you're talking to all of them.
Right.
There was a guy that was in there. I forget his name now. I might have mentioned that on another podcast. So my friend Danny Ticchio, who was a skipper in Staten Island, he was talking to this guy in there, and he was an older man. He wasn't too healthy though. As a matter of fact, he died there. And so he said to me, I talked to him a little bit. And so Danny pulls me to the side. And he says, Joe, he says he thinks, let's say the guy's name was Lou or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what it was, Angelo, something like that, so long ago. But he says to me, he thinks he knows your father. I said, really? He says, yeah. So I was curious, and I had called up my aunt, and I says to her, at that time the phone was, you could call more on the phone back in the 90s. It was a different time. But anyways, I called up my aunt. They asked her to send me a couple pictures of my father. So sure enough, I brought him to the cell with the guy, and we were sitting down there, me, Danny, and this guy, and he's looking at the picture. He goes, yeah, this is your father. He says, and it was kind of he told me a few stories. One of them was like, he says, because he said your father used to drive a Lincoln, a Mark III, and it was, and I had the picture with him, my father, with the Lincoln. And so he told me, he says, look, there was a guy that my father was hanging around, and he brought my father around and everything, and my father had to borrow some money. And so my father, he says, your father always, he says, was a good about coming to pay. He says, even if your father didn't have the money that week or asked for an extra week or something like that, he still came. We didn't have to go with him. He says, and we like that. He says, and but your father was always good. He says, and what happened was the guy that brought my father there, that he was hanging around with, went bad. And so then my father stopped hanging around with him, and they still liked my father. And then my father got on his own feet and did his own thing. But it was nice to hear some of those stories like that.
So you get in and you sort of hook up with these with the other wise guys in there, and you're hanging out with them. Is there any sort of special privileges or like any kind, were you guys getting stuff in from the outside, cigarettes and that sort of thing? And
yeah, sometimes it's like used to be able to buy the Italian guys. We used to buy the Nobilis, the guinea stinkers we used to call them. You know what I mean? Some of them had they used to dip them in anisette, and I don't know if they sold those over there, but they would sell some of the things like that at the commissary back then. I don't think they even allow smoking anymore now.
Oh, so back then you could just buy cigarettes. You didn't have to get cigarettes smuggled in, or
yeah, exactly. You didn't even,
okay.
Yeah, I don't think they allow cigarettes now, and which is okay. I don't smoke either way, so it didn't matter.
Okay.
But they're going back still to the other story first about before I go to the smuggling things. And there was a guy. So Danny Ticchio was there and everything like that. And there was a guy. I think I told you guys a story a long time ago that my father was involved with this delicatessen, and I was serving the guys coffee when I was younger. Well, sure enough,
Pippi's Deli, right?
Pippi's Deli. Yeah, that's right. So one of the guys that I served coffee there, Artie, I think his name was. He was in a wheelchair, and I used to say hello to him and stuff. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" Out of respect, you just say hello. I didn't get into anything who I was or where, none of that stuff. Anyways, so Danny says to me, he says, Artie wants to see you at the, where they was like the rec room. I says, okay, I'll go. So now this is in Otisville. I go to the rec room, and he says, this is the kid. He always says hello to me. He says, hey, kid. He says, you're Joe Barone. He says, yes. Yeah. He says, don't you remember me? He says, you were a little kid, you used to give me coffee and this and that. He says, like that, yeah. I said, no, I said, I was young, I don't remember. He says, oh man, he says, look, he says, hey, everybody says, make room for him. And as soon as he said that, I was in with everybody. I was in with all the wise, and these wise guys, a lot of them were from different crews, different families, what I mean, and also different crews too, but different families. And he says, hey, let me ask you a question. He says, how's your father doing and everything? He didn't have my father died or anything. At least that's what he seemed like. And I said, he died. He goes, oh, really? I'm sorry about that. He says, how about your mother? How's your mother? I said, she died too. He goes, how you doing? He says, how you doing? Like, yeah. I said, all right, I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm doing it. He says, yeah, he's all right. He says, listen, this kid's a good kid. That was it. I was in. And so we all started palling around, all of us and everything.
I want to ask real quick. Do you think he knew something about your dad and that's why he asked?
Sometimes they hear things, sometimes they don't. Don't forget, you want to, even if you did the work or you knew somebody that did, you kind of don't want to brag about it anyways. You don't want to say nothing. But higher ups like him, he was a pretty higher up guy, and he might have heard something, and that's why he asked how your father's doing. Maybe he knew he was on the lam too, and maybe he didn't hear. You know what I mean? It is possible.
We'll never know.
That's the friggin', that's why it's the worst of it. But a lot of those wise guys, some of them guys were pretty good. I met Joey Bang Bang there. I had a little bit of words with him because my co-defendant was with him, Billy Starro. Billy Starr was a big kid, big strappy kid, strong kid. He was all right, the kid. I mean, he had some problems, but he was all right. But he was, I guess they were talking, and so this guy Joey Bang Bang, started asking me questions about him. I have a picture of him. I think I'll try to get it on the screen one of these days for you. And I said, hey Joey, let me ask you a question. He says, so I ask you about your case? He says, no. He says, well, yeah, so interested about my case for? I said, remember one thing, we're both wearing the same green outfits here. I said, leave the button at the door. And all the guys, this was a guy, Frankie Martini, who we used to call him Jupiter because he had a big head. Another guy, Joey Cork, he says, don't take no shit from nobody. And I didn't take no shit from the wise guys in there either because we're all in there now. It's different,
Yeah.
But, there's still some wise guys in there that was tough. There was another guy, he wasn't a wise guy, but he was Frankie Smith. He wound up cooperating later on down the road. He was a tough kid too, Frankie Smith. But I met a lot of decent guys. Matter of fact, I met two guys from Long Island. They used to be in the Diamond District, and they went back to the Diamond District after they got released. And don't you think when I'm in the Diamond District, I told the story years ago, I was going down there when I first come home, and I was buying some diamonds and selling them for more money, and I was making a little hustle there. Well, don't you think I bump into these guys, Larry and his brother? Oh, well, Larry and I think they were cousins. Oh man, we had a lot of stories. Larry, those guys were funny. All you got is stories in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I told him about the girl I was dating. I says I found out she went behind my back. Of course, what a surprise. They went with somebody I knew, and he says, "Ah, you kidding me?" He says, "My wife. She says she was gonna run out for milk and cigarettes." He says, "I haven't heard from her in 2 weeks." So you make there's a lot of funny shit that you hear in there. A lot of good stories. You know what I mean? So.
Do you ever have any conflicts or any fights? Anybody try to press you in there?
Oh, sure. There was a lot of stuff we used to get. I didn't want to go back to the stuff. We had a guy that was a CEO that was back in those days. You used to have for the wash machines and everything. They used to give you money. So all of us saved up some money, and this guy Louis Mena, who I was in a cell with. He knew that one of the CEOs there, and we were saving up all our dimes to get money. And then this guy would come in with meatball parmesans, chicken parmesans. He came in one time with donuts from Dunkin' Donuts, mm-hmm. and or wherever he got them from. And so we had a dozen of them. So Danny Ticchio was over. He says, "Hey, give this to Dan." So I wrapped 2 donuts up in a napkin. I says, "Hey." You got your coffee? Danny goes, yeah. I says, yeah. And I gave him the 2 donuts. He just took the donuts and went. He was so happy. Those little things we share amongst ourselves. So we used to have a guy that used to do that. And then sometimes you're going to get steroids in there. It all depends on, who the guy is and everything. And we used to, one time, it was all of us Italians now, we used to make the macaroni in a bucket with the stinger. Mm-hmm. So we had it. These guys had it all set up. Ralphie Giordano, Eddie Kavanaugh. There was Frankie Martini, me, myself, a few other guys, and so we had a long table in the laundry room. So what we did was we took a bed sheet and we put it on there. It was like around the holidays. We had a big feed. We had all the cans of sardines and the oysters and everything we were able to buy from the commissary. We had the macaroni. And it says, all we need now is the picture of the Last Supper
So
out
it's
there.
really
I
like
said,
that
good.
scene in Goodfellas.
Sometimes,
when they're,
yeah. Well, they had their own private thing. It was a little different in the 70s than it is, in the 90s. They changed a lot of shit. But
was that real? Did people actually get that? Like they had their own.
probably in the 70s. Who knows? Listen,
Wow.
these guys had tons of money, and CEOs weren't making shit, and everything revolves around the dollar. Remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, somebody will do it for this much money, and somebody won't. They'll have to need more money.
Right.
So we had the table and everything, and then so we were getting ready. We all of us sat down. We were getting ready to eat and everything, and Frankie Martini says, "Guy, Joe, say the thing." So we used to say, we used to make a toast. Now you guys never heard of. Well, we say here's to Abe Relish, a great canary. He could sing, but he couldn't fly. Now, what happens? Abe Relish was one of the first knockaround guys. I think he was Jewish or something. He turned to be a government informant, and the marshals or whoever it was, the police or whatever, had him in this one hotel, and they said he committed suicide. He jumped out the window, but we know that
He got pushed.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
That's why he says he's a great canary because they sing. He says he could sing, but he couldn't fly.
Oh,
so
geez.
yeah, so we made that toast, and we laughed, and we ate, and we telling stories of us in the street, a little bit about this, a little bit about that, So it was that kind of thing in Otisville. So Otisville wasn't too bad because there was a lot of there was some holdovers, which I was a holdover, but there was people who were designated there, and those guys have the better stuff. So actually, you would go to them to get some stuff and put money in their commissary and stuff like that. You could do that back in then. Now they want to break your balls if you put some money in somebody else's commissary. Some people don't have no money, and then there was a kid that he just got off the boat. He was a drug dealer or whatever. I don't know if he really was serious. He might have been one of the guys who just worked on the ship, but they arrested him too. And he wound up. I bought him some sandals and some deodorant and stuff, and he was so happy. He almost started crying and shit.
And they had something to say to you about it? The COs?
No, but back then you could put like a money.
Oh, you're saying back then you could do stuff like that.
Yeah, so
now
I
you
bought
can't even do stuff.
exactly. I had my own shower shoes and everything, but I bought him his own deodorant, his own soap and shit. Cause you go in there, you got nothing. You got to wait till you get something in the commissary. It's just the system is all messed up. All that stuff you ever hear, or anybody in the audience ever hears about rehabilitation, all of that. That's all bullshit. They ain't trying to rehabilitate anybody. But as opposed to, there was a guy Light. We call him Light. He was a black guy, but he was light skinned. So he in the mess hall, there's around the windows where you could open them. There was it was all meshed, screened in or whatever. But somebody must have bent it or whatever. So he had these. Now in the mess hall, in the regular kitchens, they have the real long loaves of bread because they're feeding massive people.
Yeah.
So he handed me 2 loaves of bread. He said, "Yo, New York," and they called me New Yorkers. So obviously, I'm from New York, and we all had nicknames. Anyways, the bottom line was he gave me the 2 loaves of bread, and I said, "Holy shit!" So I put the 2 loaves of my bread. Now the thing is sticking out like this, right? So I walked in there into the unit, and the guy said, "Hey, Barone," it was the CO. I think he still works there. I don't want to say his name, but he was a good guy anyway. He was one of the good COs. Anyways, he put on a little weight. He knew I had bread, but he didn't care. It's bread. It's food.
Yeah.
We And so Light came to my cell, and he says, "You got that?" And I said, "Yeah." And I handed him the 2 loaves. He goes, "No," and he gave me a whole loaf by himself. Yeah. So, and I didn't even ask for anything. I was just doing it because he did it. And so, just like I would bring in, and when I was in Michigan later on in my first bid, Milan, Michigan was my last stop. I did 18 months there. The guy would make the hooch. So I would put it in my laundry bag, and I was going over, walking through the compound and stuff, and the CO stopped me. He said, "Hey, man, you got a lot of laundry." I said, "I'm sick of doing this laundry, man. I got somebody else do it." And they were going to look and check the bag, but they didn't. I got away with it. And
Oh, geez.
yeah, otherwise you go to the box for making up the hooch. You know what I mean?
Man. For how long would they send you there?
Yeah, it all depends. Could be a month. Could be 2 months. Depends on it's your first offense or whatever. Who knows,
Damn.
Yeah, but we had a problem. There was this kid Sal in there, and he was a little slow, I think. But he was like I don't know what he was in that life. I think he was more or less the guy that pulled the trigger because he didn't have to. He wasn't too smart, but he was capable, I guess, and he was gonna have a fight. And so it happened to be with the Kid Light, and I was like, damn man, the Kid Light is a good guy, but you got to do what you got to do now. Uh, Danny says he grabbed Sal and Light came to the thing. He says, listen, he says, anything jumps off in here, Joey. He says, listen, he says, this kid don't leave this room. You understand? I said, I understand, Danny. So I was going to have to do whatever I had to do back then, too, which was pretty messed up. But this is the way prison is. Like, it's some politics in there. There's some gangbangers in there. There's some real dummies in there. There's some real stand-up people in there. Of course, there's other people who cooperate. There's just all kinds of different people there.
Right.
We had to go now on weekends. We were able to go to. You have your ID card. You're supposed to wear it around your neck. So what happened was we went into this one TV room. You can go out on the weekends if they lock you up, do the count, and you put your card in the window of the where the cell is. The door shuts, and then you can go into a TV room. So naturally, most of us, there was the black TV room, of course. There's the white TV room, and then there's the Italian TV room, right?
There's several TV rooms?
There was 3 TV rooms.
Oh, okay. They had to probably have it like that so people didn't fight, right?
They had the Spanish TV room, mostly the white one, Spanish and black.
Yeah, I got you.
We called it the Italian because most of the Italian guys were there. Sometimes the white guys would come. It might have been even 4 TV rooms, if I'm not mistaken. I forget. It's a long time ago. But anyway, we get in there. And these one guy's Nigerian, this black dude. He was built like a brick shit house, this dude, too. And then there's one of the other buddies in there. And we didn't really want to watch he started changing the channel, thought he could run the show because the blacks kicked him out of the black room, TV room. So that's why,
Why did he get kicked out? Did you know or no?
Because nobody liked him. He was an arrogant son of a bitch. You know what I mean? These guys come from Africa and all of these places, and they're nasty. Oh, God, they're nasty. One guy he picked up a fork. He's in front of me. You go, you get a tray, and you pick up the fork. They're all plastic and stuff, at least back then. And he was looking at it to see if it was clean. I said, bro, you were just drinking out of a swamp, a river. You worried about the fork is clean? You're in America now. Be thankful you're here. This is but it was like, they're arrogant. They're nasty, some of them. And then some of them speak more than one language, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so my friend George Haliotis, he was a Greek guy, really good guy, tough kid, strong. We used to work out together sometimes, too, a lot of times. He walked right up to the dude and said, look, maybe you don't get the message. We don't want you here. Well, this guy smacked him.
The Nigerian smacked him?
The Nigerian smacked George. I mean, smacked him. Well, that was it. George started pummeling him. He was getting him and everything like that. Now, his other friend was over there. There was a guy, Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, I think, got life. He was a bank robber.
And he was in there with you? There was people who were on life sentences in there?
Well, that was later on. He was going to get life.
Oh, okay.
25 years or something like that. Some bullshit thing. He was a bank robber. Him and another guy. And
Gotcha.
his co-defendant was an animal. Irish guys,
Right.
His Irish friend was Curbin guys. You know what Curbin is, right?
No.
Okay, so Curbin is when you get the guy on the ground, however you do, hit him, whatever.
Oh.
And then you open his mouth on the curb.
Right.
And then you hit
Curb
him,
stomp.
smash his head back. Yeah, that's curbing him. They did it in The Sopranos, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it in The Bob. But, it's pretty serious, that curbing, man. You don't really recuperate too good from that. But anyways, this guy Kevin grabbed the kid. He says, don't move. And Kevin was like a very, he had a little twitch about him, you know what I mean? He was a little messed up from all the shit he was going to do all the time. And as a matter of fact, he's the type of guy when he went to court, and they wanted to give him they wanted to give him 25 or 30 years. He goes, 30 years, I'll be an old man when I got it. He says, why don't you just give me the lethal injection? I'll sign the paper, the waiver.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah, Kevin was tough, too. He was skinny. Drank tons of coffee, but he wasn't scared of nobody. Matter of fact, Jimmy Scotty from the Parkside in Queens, he was they called him the Silver Fox. He used to be around Tough Tony's crew. With Tough Tony's, it was a big shot in the Genovese family. I think his last name's something with an F, but real Italian guy too. But anyway, Jimmy Scotty says, Kevin, they were in a cell together. He says, Kevin, do your skit about how you used to rob the bank. And here's a quiet guy, whatever. Holy shit, you should have seen the metamorphosis. He changed completely. I was like, no wonder why they gave you the money. You know what I mean? He was a scary looking dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Yeah, so George, they started fighting, and we didn't jump in. We let it go 1-on-1, but then the guy happened for some reason got on top of George. So I says, well, fuck this. I'm not gonna let this happen. So I grabbed the guy's ankles and I slid him off. And as I was sliding him off, I was kicking him in the balls. And I was stomping on him like that. So that that kind of took the wind out of him a little bit. And George got back on him. So then the COs came, they heard the ruckus and everything like that, and they took them out of there because he was a little messed up. And then they started looking at the knuckles and everybody, and I had no marks on me, but George had some red knuckles or whatever the case may be, and they took him to the hold, and I never saw George again.
Really?
Yeah,
Never saw him again.
No, I thought I'd meet up with him. I thought they let him out or whatever. Sometimes they might have transferred him. Who the hell knows?
Wow.
Yeah, George was good, and he had another co-defendant in there, Manny. He was a good guy too. A lot of these guys, yeah. I tell you the truth, and all kidding aside, I did meet some good people there. You really do. You do meet some decent people. But yeah, that was one of my fights. Then later on, I went to Valhalla, which is in White Plains. So they for some reason the feds had no room for all the people they were bringing in, so they rented out a floor in Valhalla State Prison.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all there and stuff like that, and then, of course, I did have a fight there. There was a guy that I had 2 mattresses, and so it was a little thicker because I took one out, and then this guy said to me, like the CO took his mattress because he had 2 mattresses too, and then he goes, yeah, but he's got mattresses too. So then they took mine. So I told the Spanish guy, Freddie was red hair, white skin, Puerto Rican guy. The other guy was from Colombia, and he says, you ratted him out and everything. So I told the CEO, I said, look, I got a problem over here with this dude. I knew the guy from, and he knew my friends from the street. And I don't know if he still works there now, but I won't say his name. But I do know him. And he said to me, look, Joe, he says, I'm going to let him out for a shower. Now, on this one pod, there was 15 cells on this side. Then you got to go through and go around the other side. There's another 15. But I only had the 15 on my side. He says, I'm going to let him out for a shower. He wants to take a shower. He says, I'll let you out too. He says, and then I won't make another round for 20 minutes.
Oh,
what
wow.
You gotta do. I said, okay. He come to my cell. He said, okay. He let everybody out. He come to my cell. Next thing they all saw him come out. Boom, I cracked him. He went flying out of the cell. And so he got his composure. I was getting ready to come and hit him again. But he picked up, there was a mop bucket there. And he picked up the thing to try to swing it at me and stuff. So he...
Mop?
Yeah, not the mop, the thing, the ringer,
the
ringer part, yeah.
Yeah.
So he tried to swing it at me. Of course, he was slow with it, and so I was not much to do it. So I gave him a kick. I cracked him again, and when he went to his knees, I was going to jump up and kick him in the head, but right next to where he was they have, and this was the older side of the prison, was a radiator. It was like those old-fashioned radiators.
Mm-hmm.
So one Spanish guy in there, he was yelling. He didn't speak that good English. He was telling Freddie, he's going to kill him. He's going to kill him. So Freddie said, that's enough, Joe. And so I didn't hurt him anymore. So then we all went back to the cell. So now the CO comes back to make the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so Freddie says to him in Spanish, you better, because the CO went to go see him because he was messed up. He was bruised up and everything. Right. He says, what's the matter, Salazar? What happened? And so Freddie yells to him, you better tell him you fell. And he did. He didn't say nothing no more. And so I had some aspirin with me, and I gave it to Salazar. He was not a bad guy, but I had because this is the problem with prison. Even if you can't fight, you better fight.
Right. Otherwise, people are going to know you're weak.
There's rules. Like in those cells right there, you walk straight down the cells. You don't look to see what's going on in those cells. It's none of your friggin' business. Mind your business.
Right.
And Salazar, when he did that, even though it was not the end of the world, somebody thinks a mattress is being taken from you or whatever, and it's not the end of the world. But you have to show that you got to do what you got to do. So, what are you going to
do? So let's talk about your second bid.
Mm-hmm.
This is after the FBI outed you, and you're now a known informant.
Yep.
Now, when you go in there, what is the interactions between the other wise guys in there like?
Well, when I first went in there, there was one of the guys he went to go see. he got out. He went to a state prison. I think this other guy Jimmy that it's on. Dominic talks about him on the Mafia Roundtable. I don't know if his name was McManus or whatever his name was. He was a big guy, no slouch. But I guess they heard about me in the street from the papers, and then they sent my friend Chili a note saying that, watch out for me and this and that. Well, Jerry, I'm not trying to ruin his name or anything like that because he was a real gangster, so I don't care what anybody says, but he did show me the note, and he said, I don't believe what they write in the paper, Joe. I need proof. Okay? So now, Chili made me soup. I gave money to Chili while I was in there in the joint with him. I sent money to his wife for Chili. And, Chili might have been just using me too. But I don't want to say bad things about him, like as if he was being nice to me. Maybe after somebody gave him the word that I might be cooperating.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, Chili's not that way. If he thought I was an informant, I'm going to tell you, is right here, right now, he would have handled it totally, totally different because he was a real gangster.
He just didn't know for sure now. He liked you already, and he didn't want to believe it.
I think he didn't want to believe it, maybe, or something like that. But he was no slouch, and so that's it, But I'm not going to say anything about Chili like that. He was the real guy, and I liked him, and I like, to this day. But, when I went there and they outed me, and then they came and they arrested me, he's actually the one who called his wife to call my fiance at that time, tell him he's in the box. So I didn't have to wait a week, or she didn't have to come up for a visit to find out I was in the box. See, so that's the way we all stuck together. Nicky Cigars, or Nicky Mouth, whatever you want to call him, Nicky Santori, he was just, I didn't like him. I never would have liked him even if I was in life with him. But
why didn't you like him?
he's just one of those arrogant wise guys, like think who the hell he is type of guy, and he's one of those guys that didn't trust anybody. Which look, I don't blame him. That part I don't mind. And you should talk. Vinny Basciano said to me a long time ago, he said right away, he says, look, you talk to everybody like they're wearing a wire. And so he was right about that. You should, especially when you're going to be doing things.
Right.
But I wasn't treated anything different because I didn't have any time. Matter of fact, I just met that guy Esposito and everything like that. The one that was the mafia cops. They were killing guys. They were on the take. So they were in the hole too, but I just missed them when I went there. Something Esposito, I think the guy's name was. But they probably wouldn't have talked to me if they knew. But a lot of guys don't get that information in the hole sometimes, Vinny didn't know. Vinny Basciano, we were in the hole together. He didn't know. He actually talked to me, and I appreciate the way he talked to me. He said to me, "Look, Joe," he says, "don't think that be a man, I can go anywhere in the country, and nobody can say anything about me. I'm a stand-up guy," which is true. He's a stand-up guy. He didn't know I was already right. And he says, "Don't think that you and Dominic are going to run away in the sunset together, when he found out that Dominic cooperated, and I think that hurt him when Dominic cooperated too. But that's another thing.
And this is Vinny Gorgeous you're talking about. He was Bonanno as well?
Yeah. He was the good real guy too.
Was he a capo?
He was. Yeah, he was passing, but he was like acting boss too when he was street
really?
boss. Yeah, no, he should have been. He was a real gangster too, though. He had. Listen, it's like anything else. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has a flaw, and then everybody can make a mistake. And we talk about that on Mafia Roundtable. We talk about that in my life. My mistake was going with the feds.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And I'll always say that because the federal government, as a matter of fact, I think if we can do a segment on that alone, maybe I'll bring some paperwork with the federal government and what I was allowed to do and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe in our next episode, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And this way I want to show the people, because my main focus is to show how the federal government, how messed up they are. And that's another reason why I was happy to say about the prison life, what they really do to you in there. Listen, the box is a prison within a prison. You are worse than a slave. The only thing they ever try to do is they'll try to justify what they do in there. If they got to grab you, if they got to shoot you with Thorazine, if they got to beat up on you, it's always justified. But then why are the cameras off when they do it?
Right.
It's all a joke. But nobody knows this. Look, how many legitimate people's families are going to business? You know what I mean? They either pay somebody or they'll pay the tax mistake that they made on the taxes. Nobody really knows. You know, I mean, sometimes some people will think it's an intriguing life, but let me tell you something. People in the high up in the world that are, whether you're in politics, whether you're rich, whether you're whatever, you always come to guys like us in the street. You always have to need a thing because having power is good, having political connections is good, but you're always going to need a thug, a tough guy, a wise guy, another guy that's got a connection
A guy
someplace
who
else.
knows a guy.
Yeah, you're right. You're always going to need a guy who needs a guy. I mean, it's sad, but it's true.
Right. So, going back to my first question, I guess. So, what was your interactions with the mafia people when you
In the second bid,
right? So
it was
let me
it
ask
was
you,
good.
So let me ask you this part. Did you ever fear for your life, like at night that they were
Listen.
going to send somebody after you, or did you were you scared that they were going to try to get you clipped in there?
I was always scared. Yeah, absolutely. Because you listen, you. There's no way to go. There's nothing you
Right.
can do. You listen. I almost got stabbed over the phone. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, this. You're in prison, bro. You know what I mean? Like you listen. They just say the feds is not as bad as like state prison. That's changed because they got all low lifes in there too. They got all thugs, gangbangers in there too. Drug dealers. So the feds have turned out to be. Matter of fact, I was on my first bid. I was gonna have a problem with some Spanish group or whatever in there. This guy we used to call him Compton because he was from Compton, California. He walked up to Johnny Artuso, who was friendly. We were friends in the joint. Johnny Artuso's father was one of the guys who supposedly was in on the Paul Castellano murder.
Right.
So his son was in there, and Anthony Artuso's his name is Anthony. He says, he's come over. He says to me. So his father was Vinny. So Anthony says, come here. I says, what's going on? And he says to me, he says, Compton came to me. He said there was, and I remember having a problem with these guys in the gym. And he said, I told him, if anything happens with this kid, he says, you're all going to have problems in here. And so having that kind of back was good. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because like I said, there's no one-on-one fight in there. No way. They all jump you. That's just the way they do it.
Did you ever get jumped?
Not in prison, no. No, I was fortunate.
Did you ever have to jump anybody?
We were going to do a few things in there one time when there was a guy on my first bid, when Raymond Patriarca, he was with the Patriarchic family up there in, not Boston it is, but it's like Boston, but it's, it's the Patriarcha family. Anybody could look it up. Anyway, he was in there. He had cancer, and I think he was sick, but I think he beat it. But anyway, thank God. But he was a good guy too, Raymond. And one of the guys cursed at him, told him to go fuck himself or whatever it may be. And Baby John DeLutra, Baby John is from Mulberry Street. And
Why'd they call him Baby John? He was a tiny guy, short.
Nah, I don't know. I don't know. I never asked him. But Baby John was a drug dealer too, and he used to own Cafe Palermo on Mulberry Street. And so, as a matter of fact, when I came home, I went and seen him.
Wow.
Yeah, because I used to go to this restaurant right next door. And but anyway, so we were gonna. It was me. It was Johnny Artuso. I'm sorry, not Anthony. Johnny Artuso. If anybody, I made a mistake. Johnny Artuso. So Johnny, me, Johnny, Baby John, Bobby DeFeo. Was there maybe somebody else? Maybe one other guy. I think I forget who it might have been. One or two other guys, but we were gonna go and tune the guy up. But then Raymond saw us and everything, and he said, "No." The guy apologized to me, and that was it. Yeah, Raymond.
So you didn't
had a lot
end
of
up having
class.
to do it.
No, Raymond had a lot of class. I think he was with Matty Guglielmi, Matt, or something like. He was another wise guy too up there, and Rhode Island was their place. Yep, Rhode Island was where the Patriarchal family was.
What was some of the things that you would look forward to in prison? Among the few things, I'm sure there wasn't a lot of them, but what were some of the kind of highlights of your day in there?
When I was working out and on my first bid, I did pretty good. We used to work out 4 days a week: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was working out with this guy Mike and this other guy Jimmy, and we had a good routine, but unfortunately, there's always fights around the weights too.
I'm sure there was a fight every single day in there.
Yeah, because people are cooped up and all that kind of shit, you know what I mean? And it's crazy. I mean, but you would look forward to, like, sometimes they would make bran muffins, and so I'd have cereal at the thing, and I go to the mess hall over there, and I get the bran muffin, bring it back, and put it in my cereal with the cold milk.
Oh, nice.
I still do that to this day, believe it or not. I go to Lowe's Foods, and I get the bran muffin. I put it in my either I could have Raisin Bran cereal or regular Cheerios. Oh, it's delicious.
Is there anything you picked up in prison that you kept other than that, of course, is there anything else that you kind of kept with you?
Yes, I learned how to play chess in prison,
Okay.
so I love the game chess. I heard it. There were some other little things I caught in prison. How to do certain things. I won't say it on air. uh, but there was, you learn things in too. You know what I'm saying, and you learn from mistakes. And a lot of people in there made a mistake. There's also a lot of people in there who are ratted on.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things, but there's a lot of there's believe it or not, there's some smart people in here. Believe it.
What was the hardest thing about prison for you?
Being away from everything you know and love. Your family, whether it's a girl or your whole family or your town where you grew up in. The food, of course, not always the best. Being subservient to all these people. It's a totally different way of life. Like I said, I mean, it's just different. It sucks. Let's face it, it sucks. I mean, we do it. People done it. I've done it. Even when I was, I cooperated while I was on my first bid. Not right away. Not right away, if everybody remembers the story. But it still sucks. I'm in prison. It don't matter.
What types of things do you do in the hole to make the hours go by? You can't do anything, right? Oh, though they let you have books in there? You can read?
You could read. You write letters. You can get stuff sent in at one time. I don't know if they changed that even now, too. Of course, you do your push-ups, your bullshit workout, what you can in there.
Right.
They give you a little radio with the earphones. You can listen to radio. But that's it, man.
I got you.
Unless somebody else gets more creative, you know what I mean?
And I'm sure certain luxuries have fell off over time. I'm sure you don't get anything in there anymore.
Well, we used to get like the different food. They won't allow certain food in there. Of course, they won't allow certain items in there from the commissary.
Yeah.
It's just, I went into prison, I was 220 pounds in the street. When I left prison and I got acquitted, I was 175 pounds.
Oh my God!
So
just because you couldn't work out, you were in there 23-1.
The food sucks.
Oh, the
bro.
food.
Food sucks. I was living on peanut butter.
Wow.
Yep. The food sucks.
So when you're in the hole, I know you mentioned about working out earlier, but are you still allowed to work out when you're in the hole?
Well,
other than like doing push-ups,
that's
right?
it.
But
So
are you allowed to the weight room at all? No, right?
Not at all. And the whole thing is we used to they sell coffee. Okay. So after the coffee was done, it had a Ziploc bag. So if we would get the tray would come with the food. So if they give you a slice of bread or 2 slices of bread, we would put them in the plastic bag and save it. And so
Right.
at nighttime when you get a little hungry, which you always do, you put your peanut butter on that. And we had a peanut butter sandwich. Once in a blue moon, if you're lucky, you do it quiet. You put a note on the window that's there saying, "Can I please have a milk?" And then the CO, if they liked you, they would come with the 2 cold milks that they would give you for breakfast. Because they only give you for breakfast is 2 milks and a piece of cake. So if you're diabetic, you're dead.
Yeah, right. You're diabetic. You're dead.
Yeah. So that was it. Or sometimes they give you a little box of cereal, but it's the box, brother.
Yeah.
And it sucks, you know what I'm saying? But once in a while you get a cold milk with that peanut butter sandwich, and then it was good.
That's pretty much all the questions I have today.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to add anything else. We have a lot of comments that we can go to that I wanted to address have you answer some questions that people have. You good with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. So I'm just going to read them to you here.
Okay.
We have from Richard Lindbergh 9700. I like you and Dom. Whenever I go to comment, which is rare, I always end up completely going blank on how I want to word my comment. I just wanted to show support and that I like what you guys are doing, and thank you for sharing all the ups and downs of the life and putting your story out there. Dom as well. I can't imagine that's an easy thing to do sometimes, so I admire that. Good for you guys.
Thanks very much for that comment too. Appreciate it. I do miss Dominic. I miss when we were together, that camaraderie that we had. The thing where you can kind of talk to him about anything and he can tell you something. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool. But yeah, I miss that, and I really appreciate that comment. Very, very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Richard also says he's about to go listen to all our episodes over the next few days.
Thanks. Yeah, hope you enjoyed them.
Thanks,
And then
Richard.
put some more comments up. We're happy to answer them. I'm happy to answer them, and I hope
If you guys have any
some
questions, you can just comment on any of the videos, and we'll see them, we'll read them, answer them. Hopefully, if you have a few questions, you could email them in at Goodfellow Podcast is our email at gmail.com is our email. The next one, Joe, from Edgar Muniz 7664. That was a good question. What was the next question? LOL, good one.
That's good. Thanks. Yeah. A lot of people laughed at that one too, even
Yeah.
myself. But that's the way it's got to go. But thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Xavier James comments, that's the truth. The ends justify the means. The elite who run the world live by that.
That's a fact. And to be honest with you, to some degree, the FBI are the elite, and it's one way, as you can see by the news and how publicized the FBI is now. They're all part of the politics. They're all part of the system. They're all out for their own money. God only knows how real crooked they really are. They have unlimited funds. It's bad. And that's why I think if we could do a segment on the FBI. I'll tell you how.
Next week for sure.
For next week or something like that. I'll bring some paperwork. I just got to find it.
Frosty98206 says, thanks for reading my comment. Made my day. Put a smile on my face. I think we responded to one of his comments in the last
that's good.
video.
Yeah. No, like I said, I want to try to give everybody, as a matter of fact, on Mafia Roundtable, Dominic and I, we're trying to get together, trying to do either a live show but we want to answer questions because, listen, you guys are the audience. You have some questions, and I'll feel free to answer them. I'll answer them as honestly as I can.
Brown Couch comments, this Joe was a rat from the 80s. He was best friends with two rat brothers from Portchester, stayed with them all the time, even came to court for them when they testified. Real tough guy, real stand-up guy. Talk about that, Joe.
Wow. That is really good. That is really good that was brought up, and I really appreciate that question. The people that you were talking about, and I'll straighten it out. I was not a rat in the 80s. The two brothers that you're talking about are the Sinis brothers from Portchester, Nick and John Sinis. Okay, both of them. Nick was really tough. John was strong, but I don't know if he was as tough as Nick, but he was strong in his own right too. They're talking about an episode about the court. They're talking about a time when Sally Larker, who's in the Genovese family, he's a wise guy, and his friend Hippie, he's the captain in the Genovese family now, from what I understand. You guys have heard, I don't know if you just heard me mention it, but you've also heard me mention it on Mafia Roundtable with Dominic. Dominic knows them both. Hippie a lot better than Sal, I believe. Sal saw me with Nick, and he wanted to talk to me. So he said, I was in Murray Richmond's office, and he said to me, look, can you help me out here? Now, what happened was they don't want to really tell you this, okay? Back then, Sal and Hippie, they were notorious for pretending they liked you, buying you a few drinks, getting you drunk, and then jumping you outside. Okay, that's the truth. And you guys could ask Dominic that. I'm sure he understands that too. He might remember that too. Okay, so what happened was they had some beef with John. I don't know who fought John Sinis, but John beat the shit out of the guy or whatever it was. And so now they seen him out in a bar somewhere. I don't know where the bar was. And they talked to John. Hey, nah, it's over. Forget about it. All that nonsense. Let's have a drink. We'll be, these things happen. All that nonsense. They got him a little drunk. Not terribly, terribly drunk. But when they went outside, they jumped him. Okay? And they heard him. They kicked him in his ear. I think he lost a little hearing in the right or left ear. I forget what it was.
Geez.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to tell you. So now, Sal comes to me, doesn't tell me the whole story like that, just tells me, can you help me because you know them. So I approach Nick and I says, Nick, what's going on? And Nick says, oh, you know them? I says, yeah, I know the guy, Sal. I was introduced to him. I shouldn't even have helped him. I should have said, I can't help you. You're on your own, is what I should have told him. Because when my father introduced me to Sal, we were at some place, I don't know, getting some breakfast or whatever. And Sal was leaning on the thing. And he turned and looked at me and he shook my hand like this. And I told Dominic the story. And Dominic said to me, I should have told him, if that's the way you shake somebody's hand when you introduce to me from somebody like my father. See, Dominic had the right answer. And I should have said that too, but I didn't really care about Sal. He didn't mean nothing to me, but I guess my father knew because he knew his father or something too. Well, whatever the case may be, but I should have told him I can't help you. But I said, look, let me try to help you because, like, I don't want to see anybody get in trouble. So I talked to Nick, and Nick says to me, I said, look, these guys they'll take care of everything for you, your doctor bills or whatever. So now I go to the Bronx. I go see Murray Richmond because Murray at that time, I think his daughter runs the firm now, but at that time I was trying to get some money back from my father that the FBI took from the number stores. And I was, trying to see what's going on with that. And Murray said, you're never going to see that money again. But anyways, they meet me downstairs. I'm with this kid, Pete Savinello. There's another kid that I got to tell you a story about him, how he's the only guy that I told what I was doing, but we'll get into that another time. Anyways, Pete was so close to me, scanned. It was Joe Constantine, it was Sally, Hippie, and all of them, and they surrounded us over there outside. And I said, listen, guys, I offered these kids money that you told me, and I pulled out some money. I had like a couple $1,000 on me. I said, I offered them money. They don't want to take it. They don't think you're going to give them the money. They think I'm going to give the money for you, and you're going to beat me. That's how much they trust you. So Hippie was there. I guess he had a gun in his pocket. He had a sweatsuit on. He goes, what do you want to do, Sal? What do you want to do? I said, Sal, tell me what you want to do. We're right on the corner of Murray Richmond's building and Pasta right there. I said, Sal, what are you going to do? Shoot me in broad daylight here? They just tried to scare me or whatever, and I don't know why. I don't scare that easy. So anyways, it didn't happen. Nothing happened. I went to talk to Nick. I says, look, will you do the right thing by him? And they said, yeah. I don't even know if they're telling me the truth or not, but I said to them, I said, see if you could drop the charges, but get something in writing first. They said, Joe, would you come to court? Now, I didn't go to court with two of them. I only went with Nick once. Sal was there. Sal gave me the dirty, mean look, the wise guy look, because I was with him. But I says, come outside. Because I figured they could talk, get their lawyers involved, and make a deal. And this guy was ready to drop the charges, but no. They want to do things the hard way in their own way. They get themselves in trouble, and then they expected me to help them. I had nothing to do with it. I put myself out there trying to put a quick marriage together with them, but they didn't want to go for it because they really didn't want to give the money to the kid. The kid had medical bills or whatever. He didn't have no insurance. I think it was only a couple of $1,000. They would have got together with the attorneys or whatever. That's why I had the kid there, and I was like the go-between this way. And I got the dirty look, and that's why the guy is saying what he's saying. But that story I remember, and I appreciate you asking me that. But I don't know who you are, and I really don't care. But that's exactly what happened on my end. Now, I did go to the courtroom. Nothing happened that day. They just said I think got it postponed or whatever. But I only went there with Nick, and that's it.
Another comment from Brown Couch. Jesus, this guy's such a crybaby. Meanwhile, Dominic says he robbed his father. Real nice guy.
Ah, okay. I'm a man, no matter what. And if I shed a tear for whatever reason, I have a lot of people have a lot of their own reasons. To me, if I shed a tear, it doesn't matter. I'm still a man. I'm maybe even more of a man than most people. The thing about me robbing my father, the real story is what happened with my father and my family. This is personal, so I'm going to say it anyways, but this is how much I want to answer this question because I'll get the record straight. I had a messed up childhood as opposed to my father and mother, watching her get hit or hearing that she got hit by my father and stuff like that. Back in those days, things were different. They would get separated, divorced, all this stuff. Matter of fact, when I got to be older and I realized what was going on, I was kind of in the dark about it. I almost had a out and out fight with my father, and that in effect hurt me too because he's still my father, but you can't put your hands on my mother, or you can't bother her or torture her. It's my mother. I don't care. I'll go to the grave protecting her or defending her, just like I would my father, and I almost did. As most of you have watched my podcast, or the Goodfellow Podcast and Mafia Roundtable, that's it. I have an agenda, and that's it. I'm willing to go the whole way. But my father, after my mother died, and she suffered for 14 months before she died. She had cancer. And it's hard to talk about it, but I wanted to get my father back. I wanted to hurt him. And of course, I wasn't going to hurt my father physically because I loved him. But he always taught me, if you want to hurt somebody really bad, hurt them in the pocket. So what I did was, I went to the safety deposit box. I took $300,000 out. And I left all his jewelry in there and everything. My jewelry was there with it too. I took $300,000. And my friend Pete, at that time, I was on a suicide mission. And my father, one time, I'll tell you why I was on a suicide mission, so you don't understand. My mother came to the house where I was living with my father and my grandmother. And she asked me if I loved her. I saw my father upstairs, shadow in the bathroom, listening to the conversation my mother and I was having. So I didn't tell her I loved her because my father was listening. That's the kind of dominance he had. That kind of stuff. So just that alone made me do that to my father. I wanted to hurt him because I was hurt. And that's the fact, what happened. But he stayed in his room for 3 days. He locked himself in a room. He wouldn't come out. I bumped into Ralphie Coppola in the country club. He saw me. And he said, whatever happens to your father, whatever bothers him, it bothers us. So I met with my father.
What did he mean by that?
In other words, my father was in the house for 3 days. He wouldn't talk to nobody.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if the guy was implying that what you did to him was going to have consequences from that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, whatever, they were together, And
Yeah.
so I guess my father told him what happened. And I talked to my father. I told him everything I was feeling. I gave him the money back. And that was that. He forgave me. He understood. But then my father had to go on the lam.
How long after was this?
About a year later. Or about a year later. Maybe a little bit less, but about a year later. He still kept my name on the money he had in the CD. He still kept my name on the Social Security, on the safe deposit box. I had to get him $70,000 when he went away, as I might have said here on the show, or other shows as well, and he went away. Well, his girlfriend at the time was doing the wrong thing, and my grandmother was old, so I went there and I took the jewelry and the rest of the money. And I kept it. I held it. Just for my father. I left $100,000 in a CD because I didn't think she can get it, but they wound up taking that from him, too. Her name was Julie. She was no good. She was a tramp as far as I'm concerned. She tried to sleep with me after he left because my father, when my mother got cancer, one thing I got to say, he spent every waking moment he could with my mother. He left Julie, took care of her, tried to give her to all these hospitals, alternative medicines, tried to make her happy. Christmas he gave her everything, a ring for each finger, mink fur coat, full foxes and all of this stuff he tried to make happy because he read somewhere that if you're happy or you laugh a lot, it has a way of killing the cancer. But it was too late. But that's the truth. That's the truth story. What happened? So everybody can still say that I stole my father's money, but I didn't. I took it to protect him, and that's okay. If anybody wants to believe me or not, I really don't care. But that's the truth.
Wow, you have such a complicated relationship with your dad.
Yep.
You know, you have lots of feelings of where he was your role model and your best friend, but also, pain from some of the things that he did to you.
Unfortunately, that life is the way it is, and then the way he was, and I guess I got to carry with me. So, what was the next question?
Well, Joe, we could end it there if you want, or we can keep going. It's up to you.
Yeah, let's just end it today.
Okay.
Thanks.
Listen, guys, we appreciate all the support, all the new subscribers and comments, and keep the comments coming. We'll address a few at the end of each episode, like we've been doing. Also, just wanted to let you guys know we have a new Patreon. We have 3 tiers of subscription where you get access to exclusive content and stories and behind the scenes with Joe and I that you won't find anywhere else. So go check out our Patreon. Link is in the description. We appreciate it, guys, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.